Oh man, I'm so hyped to talk about this. I've been sitting on this theory for a while. Alright, let's get it. Oh baby, One Piece manga chapter 1023. Wow. What's up YouTube? This is Mr. Prince Productions, aka MPP. Oh man, I've been waiting a long time for this one. You know, I wanted to be sure that the story was going in the way that I wanted, with Zoro and Sanji colliding at the same time against King and Queen in a 2v2 free-for-all. It's finally time for these two members of the monster trio to do something that we've never really seen. Enter a tag team battle against the two biggest bosses of what is arguably, you know, like the strongest Yonko crew with Kaido's big meritocracy organization. And it's two dudes whose names we don't even know, just codenamed King and Queen, right? But that's all we need to know about them. That just tells you their strength right there. But Zoro and Sanji themselves are meant to be the King and Queen, the right and left hand, or the wings, as Nico Robin put it, of the future Pirate King. They even make note at the end of this chapter that this battle will determine the fate of Luffy's dreams. At the end of 1022, that is. This battle will determine the fate of Luffy's dream to conquer the seas and become the king of the pirates. Basically, in this video, I'm just going to be discussing how I theorize that this battle between these two monstrous duos will play out based on the info from these two introductory fight chapters with 1022 and 1023. So if you're interested in more One Piece content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So let's just start off by saying I never read spoilers, never. I'm okay with reading the scans of a chapter because for the most part it's just a slightly different translation, but I'm still seeing the panels in front of me. Reading spoilers before reading the actual chapter kind of just ruins the One Piece experience for me because I want to actually see how Oda chooses to draw everything. I don't want to just read a list of all the events that happened and get none of the nuance and intrigue that comes out of Oda's dialogue and his fight pacing, right? But even without reading them, it wasn't hard to tell, for me at least, that chapter 1022 was going to be about Zoro and Sanji. Oda often likes to take full or half volume intervals before resolving a plot detail. So, for example, by full volume I mean 10 chapters and half volume being 5 chapters. So some examples would be like we saw a silhouette of Kaido's hybrid form in chapter 1003, and then Oda revealed it to us 5 chapters later in chapter 1008, right? So in this instance, it had been 10 chapters ago when we got this reveal that Sanji had wrapped up Zoro after his battle on the rooftop. That was 1012 when we saw that. And Sanji was headed to the live floor. He brings Zoro with him. He's like a packed up Zoro, right? And I figured, you know, 1022, 10 chapters later would be a big week for Zoro and Sanji. And I didn't want to make this video until I got confirmation. Like I said, I could have just read the spoilers to confirm my suspicions and, you know, maybe start making this video sooner, but it ruins my experience. So I waited for the scans, and I'm glad I did because not only were my suspicions confirmed, but this chapter was everything I wanted and more. And I'm glad I even waited another week because now when you bring in all the intrigue from chapter 1023 surrounding the true lineage factors of Zoro and Sanji, we're starting to inch ever closer to the theory that I really want to happen. So let's actually just cut to the chase and get to that right now. How do I see this playing out based on what Oda has set up for these fights? I could touch on King and Queen and, you know, what I want to see out of King's fighting style and his abilities and his race and his history, and Queen's history as well with Vegapunk and Mads and Judge and all that shit, but I'm going to keep this mostly about the Zoro Sanji info for this video. There's a lot of Beast Pirates stuff in the Beaver cards and SBS and all that stuff, so I'll talk about that in other videos. For now, I'm going to talk about Zoro and Sanji. So let's start with Zoro because I think with him it's a little bit simpler. This chapter with 1023, it didn't necessarily tell us new information about Zoro, but it rather solidified his connection to Ryuma and the Shimotsuki clan and Ushimaru. Personally, I really don't think Zoro has much left to prove in this arc after his rooftop showcase, right? But him being canonically descended from the God of the Blade, It seems like the kind of extra mile that Oda would go for a character that he loves so much, like Zoro. If this chapter implies that the parallels to Ryuma will continue throughout the arc, then some people might say that this is fuel to the fire of one ZKK agenda, right? Theorizing that Kaido will die to Zoro's blade in an attempt to parallel Oda's original one-shot manga of Ryuma decapitating a dragon. I think this is possible, but I would lean more in the direction of Zoro possibly killing King, as he is also someone who ate a dragon fruit, or Ryu no Mi. Definitely not a coincidence that he's descended from someone named Ryuma, and then it's the Ryu no Mi, dragon fruit, right? So we have yet to see also King's hybrid form, which may end up being something like more dragon-like than his just Pteranodon form. And perhaps Zoro decapitating or even just defeating King will be a satisfactory parallel to that Ryuma moment. However, the basis of my theory actually plays on another parallel, and this one comes from Thriller Bark. Now, if you've been paying attention to this arc, you'll obviously see a lot of parallels between Wano and Thriller Bark. Wano was first mentioned in Thriller Bark. Zoro fights Ryuma's corpse in Thriller Bark. But specifically the Zoro and Sanji moment at the end of that story arc, I think, not only is that one of the most impactful moments in the story, but it is something that has to be mentioned again at some point. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly, even if it's just a small comment from Sanji or Zoro, that has to be addressed at some point. And maybe it won't be until we see Kuma again in the story, but I do see potential for Oda to actually pay off that moment in a big way with this king and queen fight. So Oda, basically with Sanji, I'm going to talk about Sanji now. Oda seems to be suggesting that Judge might have injected Sanji at birth with the Lunarian lineage factor in order to give him an elemental affinity for fire, right? Apparently, Judge wanted all of his modified kids to have different elemental abilities, like Reiju is poison, Niji is electricity. They all have these different abilities, so Sanji having an affinity for fire, that would make sense. If this is the case, this might fulfill the very promise made by Vinsmoke Sanji himself all the way back in Thriller Bark. He said to Kuma, you'd better kill me because one day the most dangerous member of this crew will be me. Well, this prophecy uttered by Sanji's own lips is unfolding before our very eyes in the current state of the manga, as we now see potential for Sanji to fulfill the destiny of a race that we didn't even know existed 3 chapters ago, right? We can assume that the Lunarians were a race from the moon, given the root word lunar, a race from the moon that could spontaneously ignite their very being. They could combust at will, and that they lived for whatever reason on the Red Line. We also know, based on Marco's flashback in this chapter of drunk Whitebeard, that the Lunarians were revered as gods for some reason. If we are to assume King is the last pure-blooded survivor of this Lunarian race, then Zoro and Sanji potentially eliminating or killing King in this fight could render the group virtually extinct, with Sanji being the last person in the world with Lunarian blood. Normally, we wouldn't consider it likely for an opponent to die in a fight with the One Piece world, but Zoro did just talk about tearing out King's throat and doing whatever it would take to kill him, defeat him, get past him. And I find it also very interesting that in the very same chapter where King's race was revealed, it was in kind of an inadvertent way that directed it towards Sanji, and King not even commenting on the matter at all. It almost felt like Oda was pushing King to the wayside and putting Sanji in the spotlight during King's own race reveal, right? It was just Queen saying, oh, but you're not a Lunarian, so how can you do that? And King just kind of being like, really, bro? You just revealed his race, my race to him. But Oda might be fulfilling that statement from Thriller Bark, about Sanji being the most dangerous person to the government. If he has the powers of a race of people from the moon who were genocided by the world government, Sanji might play a more key role than we realized in the dawn of the world and the endgame story of One Piece. Perhaps one of the final moments of One Piece will be the destruction of Mary Joie by Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. Luffy surpassing Roger, as the Pirate King. Zoro surpassing Mihawk, obviously, and even Ryuma now, maybe slicing the Red Line in two or something like that, or the Pangaea Castle. And Sanji being able to put to rest, the fallen souls of the Lunarian clan by cleansing the Red Line of the Celestial Dragons, and it's theorized that Sanji will discover the All Blue, right, by the Red Line being destroyed. So maybe simultaneously, by destroying the Red Line, he not only finds the All Blue, but he brings peace to the fallen souls of the Lunarians who were murdered on the Red Line, right? Because maybe Sanji starts to empathize with them, with his kindness, realizing that what happened to them was the same thing that happened to Robin. They were just genocided for the sake of the government, whatever agenda they had. And we still don't know what that is, but Sanji being able to fulfill something like that would be really interesting and give him a lot more purpose to the end game of the story. But now we're getting into, end of series stuff, so I'll stop getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about Wano. Either way, to me, one of, if not the greatest character dynamic in One Piece is between Zoro and Sanji. Like, other than Monkey D himself, these two characters are the most exciting to watch, the most impactful on the story. Zoro and Sanji, to me, are the funniest, most impactful characters in One Piece, to me. And chapter 1022, at the time of reading it, like when Zoro and Sanji make their big appearance at the end of the chapter, I thought, like, wow, this might just be the best chapter of Wano yet. And then a week later, 1023 comes along and just blows it out of the water. And we've only just seen the beginning of what Zoro and Sanji can do in this arc. We've been waiting for a team-up fight between these two since that little taste that we got on Long Ring Longland in the battle against the Groggy monsters. I saw that just got reanimated as well. That was awesome. But one of my big hopes for the fight, like I said, is that the nothing happened moment gets brought up. Robin and Brook are available right now. They just finished their fight against Black Maria, and they happen to be the only other two people that know about what happened to Zoro on that fateful day. Brook watched, I guess, he was just conscious, and Robin, she used her devil fruit powers to eavesdrop. So I was thinking about Robin's fight and how she set up this king and queen battle with the wings of the Pirate King line, and I was also thinking about how Brook really didn't do much in the Black Maria fight. Like, he mostly just fought her snake girls and put out the fire a few times, which Robin was able to do on her own anyway. With the Fishman karate, she put out the fire herself. So you didn't really need Brook. And even Brook said, like, that was a foolish thing you said, Black Maria, for thinking that Robin needs my help. So could it be that Oda only really paired Brook with Robin to have them make those comments about Sanji and Zoro? And could it be that Oda moves them to the live floor? If that happens, I could easily see the situation where Sanji has maybe defeated Queen a few chapters from now, and Zoro is fighting King on his own, but he's losing because, like, let's say the effects of the drug that he took, it's wearing off, and he's starting to feel the excruciating pain from his dozens of broken bones that he got from fighting Kaido and Big Mom and taking the ocean sovereignty, right? So I imagine Zoro would be too prideful to ask Sanji for help in that scenario, and Sanji would probably be just fine with letting Zoro carry on losing on his own, right? So maybe Robin and Brook would have to remind Sanji of what happened over 2 years prior when Zoro gave up everything for the crew, and it might spur Sanji into saving Zoro and defeating King in a Lunarian versus Lunarian blood battle, by the end of which Sanji has defeated not one but two Yonko commanders, and he saved his vice captain Zoro in the process, thereby fulfilling his prophecy from Thriller Bark of becoming the most dangerous man. I could even see Oda doing a little flashback in that moment as, like, Hyogoro and Kawamatsu and everyone watching the fight, they're all like, Zorojuro and Sangoro won the battle, yeah! And you cut to, flashback Sanji's words to Kuma, I will be the most dangerous member of this crew, and then cut back to two commander bodies on the floor. Oh man, I think that would be so great. So great for the story, so great for Sanji's character, Zoro's character. Zoro realizing I had my time fighting the Yonko. This is Sanji's time. Like, that would be incredible. But either way, I don't think Zoro's body's lasting past this fight, even if he manages to defeat King on his own, and it just does separate into two 1v1 battles. Sanji defeats Queen, Zoro defeats King. I think that's how most people theorize. I like the theory better that Zoro's body can't last that long, so Sanji has to come in and kind of help. But even if Zoro finishes the fight on his own, I don't see him doing much after, right? He's not going to have the strength left to fight anyone major after getting past King. This is going to be a high difficulty fight. But maybe someone like Orochi, because Orochi, you know, is like a Spandam level combatant, like level 9 troop. But, you know, that's all I really see Zoro doing after this fight, is maybe something with Orochi. But I want to know what you guys think. Tell me in the comments, what do you think about this theory? Do you think the nothing happened moment will get brought back? Do you think Sanji will pay back Zoro for what he did for the crew? Do you think Sanji will save Zoro in any way to kind of parallel Thriller Bark when Zoro saves Sanji? And do you think Robin and Brook get involved? Do you think King and Queen go down, you know, with relative ease, like an Enies Lobby type fight where they're kind of just chilling afterward? Or do you think they're really, really high difficulty fights and they barely get out of it alive? I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments. There'll be a lot more One Piece videos coming, so subscribe, MPP, for more content like this, and have a good one.